Today we venture down south to Texas, Mississippi, and Oklahoma for these allegedly true and terrifying stories. You see, the South is home to the unexplained and disturbing, and I'm not just talking about Florida man. No, I'm talking angry spirits and unnatural creatures. So enjoy these stories. Now let's begin. My aunt and uncle live in Oklahoma, so my brother and I grew up going out there to visit. We used to spend our summers out on the lake, water skiing, cliff jumping, and exploring the amazing state that is Oklahoma. For those of you who do not know, Oklahoma didn't become a state until 1907. Before that, it was the frontier and home to many Native American peoples and tribes. Today, Oklahoma is home to 39 tribal nations, and it just so happens my aunt is Native. She is a GS-15 with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Basically, she's in a top-level position. We grew up learning the legends and hearing stories, but I never figured we'd be in one. This actually happened when I was quite young, maybe 13 or so, which would make my brother 11 at the time. Still, I remember every detail like it was yesterday. We were out frog gigging, which is when you go out looking for bullfrogs along the shoreline of a lake with a 1,000,000-lumen flashlight and a boat. I'd never seen so much wildlife, and I grew up in Colorado. There were deer and frogs and snakes and beavers the size of small children. We'd been told that there might be an alligator in the lake, too, but we never did see it. But we did see an owl so big it broke the branch it was sitting on when it took flight, and its wingspan was massive. So we were out there trolling around, nighttime, and my uncle and his friend decided to spook us with a legend of the lake. They told us that an old medicine man used to live by the lake, hunting and practicing his medicine in peace. Then one day, the white man came, tricking the people into signing a peace treaty, which they later broke, stealing the land and sending the people to live on a reservation. The medicine man and his family refused to go to the reservation. The medicine man's family went to hide out at the lake with him. Well, one day, while the medicine man was out hunting, some bandits discovered the camp and burned it to the ground, killing everyone there. When the medicine man returned to the camp, finding his whole family had been murdered, he was grief-stricken and vowed vengeance upon the white devil and all his descendants. He turned to dark magic and witchcraft, using his animal bones to make special curses and spells. He practiced dark rites and rituals, which allowed him to become immortal, and though his body might die, his soul would go on living. However, he would have to continue killing in order to take on the skin of other animals to keep on existing. One day, he went to kill a buffalo to take on its skin, but the buffalo was too strong, goring the man with his horn, carrying him off into the lake, where they both drowned. That's how the legend went. Just then, something bumped up against the bottom of the boat. "What was that?" I whispered. "Another bump." My brother and I both screamed then. My uncle and his friend began to laugh. My uncle's friend had hit the hull of the boat with his oar, causing us to freak out. "Classic," my uncle said. "Works every time." "But what about the medicine man?" my brother asked. "Well, to the best of my knowledge, that's all true," my uncle said. "Or that's the legend anyway." Something bumped up against the boat again. Okay, I said. "That might have worked the first time, but we're not falling for it again." Silence. My uncle and his friend now exchanged nervous glances. Another bump. "Guys, come on, cut it out," my brother exclaimed. "That wasn't me," my uncle said. "Me neither," his friend admitted. That's when things began getting really weird. There was something in the water. Something big. Just then, the tip of a horn broke through the surface of the water to our starboard side, followed by what looked to be a giant, rotting head. The eyes were all sunken in, the face bloated and discolored, and one of the horns was broken off. But it did appear to be the head of a cow or a buffalo. The head continued rising up out of the water until the spinal cord was exposed, followed by the skeletal remains of a disfigured human body. "Go man, go," my uncle shouted. His friend began yanking on the starter cord, but the engine would not fire. "Prime it." "I'm trying to, but the engine is flooded." The thing started to swim towards us. Then we were hit with a smell like dead and rotten flesh. You could see that whatever this thing was had been dead for a very long time, and it was now covered in black, tar-like grime. The skeleton on the back of the buffalo seemed to be propped up, but void of life. It wasn't moving, it was just staying on the back of the buffalo as it moved through the water. Finally, the engine fired up, and we started to throw up a small wake. My brother and I were seriously freaking out now. My uncle was scanning the water with a flashlight, but we could no longer see the thing. A thick mist formed on the surface of the lake. The night, which had formerly been alive with the sounds of insects and critters, was now ghastly silent, save for the sound of the small boat motor. We got back to the dock, and I tied the boat off before running to the car, getting the nope out of there. I don't know if my uncle's friend ever went back there to get his boat. I'm sure he did. As for us, we never went back to that lake again, and that was the last time we ever went frog gigging in Oklahoma. Story number 2. This happened to me a little over a year ago. I lived in Texas most of my life, so we were heavily armed. The area of Texas I lived in was pretty much known for coyotes. I won't say the area for safety reasons. The neighborhood I lived in pretty much backed up to a wooded area where they all would stay during the day, but they would come out to hunt during the night. I don't know much about them besides the noises they make, as I heard them almost every night. But they would always seem to hunt together, like a pack of friends just having fun going fishing. They would sometimes snatch up dogs and cats in the neighborhood, and every now and then, a horse from one of the ranchers that lived nearby. As for us, our house was at the bottom of a hill, placed where if I walked out the back, I could walk up the hill and see a sunset full 360 degrees around, besides the part that was all woods, so more like 270 degrees. Often I'd wake up in the middle of a night for a drink, as I would be thirsty around 2 to 3 a.m. Because of this, I would see the window at the back of my house. On occasion, I would look out while I'm getting a drink, because I loved the view. But one night was different. On that night, I woke up around 2:15, give or take. I walked into the kitchen to go get myself a water, like usual, but something was off. I felt as if I was being watched by a ghost. I thought it was just my imagination at first, but then I pinpointed the reason for the feeling. Looking out of my window, I saw a single coyote staring at me from the top of the hill. I could see its silhouette even in the pitch blackness. I stared at it, curious as to why of all places to look, it was staring at me at my house. It was almost like a staring contest, but it was bigger than a usual coyote, or at least it appeared that way from what I could tell. I didn't really pay much mind to it, as there were tons of coyotes out there. But its eyes, there was something off about its eyes. Even from that distance, which was maybe 100 yards, its eyes appeared yellowish red, but there was no light for its eyes to reflect. After about 10 minutes of this staring contest, I snapped back to reality and finished my drink, placing it in the sink and going to bed. The following night, the same thing happened. I saw those same yellowish red eyes at the same spot. Over and over for a month or so, it continued to happen. But then one day, it just stopped. For about another week, I didn't see it again. During the time that it wasn't there, I felt at ease, as if a burden had been lifted from my shoulders. But a few days after that, it came back. But this time, it wasn't alone. There was a second one, same position, same size, if not a little bigger than the last. But this one's eyes were different. These eyes were yellowish red like the first, but they seemed frosted over, as if this one was blind. I didn't stick around for a drink that night. I went right back to bed. The next day, my parents had told me that because of everything going on with the Rona, we were going to have to downsize to a smaller home in case my dad's job went bad and his pay got cut or worse. Luckily, since it was still a newer area, they were building new homes across this town, and one was in the same neighborhood as this one. It wasn't even half the size, but nonetheless, it was still a very nice home. From this house, I couldn't see the hill, but I could still hear those coyotes. This brought me ease, as if I was at peace again. This peace carried on for months. Everything went good, and I almost forgot about the encounters altogether. One night, my parents were going to take a date night over at the casino, which they would have to drive to Oklahoma for, so they'd be gone for quite a while. My brother was off in boot camp for the military, so I'd be home alone for the entire day. So I did what any reasonable high school kid would do. I played video games and ate pizza rolls all day. It was a good day. Video games, some friends, no parents to tell me what to do. Life was good and all that. At a certain point, I got up to close my blinds. After all, it was getting dark. I was home and completely alone, so I got up to get the last of my very healthy junk food and Coke, and I began to walk back to my room. But suddenly I stopped in my tracks. Slowly, I looked at my back door. I couldn't see much because of how dark it was, but I felt as if I was being watched, almost the same feeling I had with the coyote from before. But this was different. Somehow it was darker and more sinister, but I couldn't look away. It was like I was stuck in a constant staring contest with something, but our eyes were chained together. Out of nowhere, my cat hissed, and it broke me from my shackles. I ran over, locking the door. I turned around quickly, but as soon as I got back to my hallway, I heard a bang, bang, bang. Someone was taking their palm and smashing it against the back window. I ran to my room, turning off my lights and TV, everything that made any sort of light or sound. I lay on the ground flat, so whoever or whatever it was couldn't see me if they peeked in. At first, I heard nothing, silence, but before I began to move again, I heard shuffling coming from my backyard, going to my room's window. The way the footsteps sounded, it was as if its legs were too heavy to completely pick up. They were dragging across the ground, and I could hear something muttering, or maybe it was gasping for air or whispering or something. It sounded garbled. It was then I realized it couldn't be my friend playing a prank on me. I covered my mouth to keep any noise from slipping out. My intruder made it to my window. It then went quiet, no longer moving or trying to talk. My blinds were luckily closed, but these weren't very good blinds in the first place. These were those modern white blinds that you pull the handle and they flip. They had a slit between each piece, and because of this and the angle I was lying down at, I could see right outside. I looked towards my bedroom door, then back at the window, and nearly threw up. Whatever was out there, it was staring right back at me through one of these slits. Those yellowish red eyes from before now stood at a height of 7 or 8 feet, peering down at me. It knew exactly where I was at. It could see me like it was daytime for it. When I tried to move, its hideous eyes followed me wherever I crawled to. I couldn't look away. The longer I stared into its eyes, the more evil it felt. I couldn't even see its face, but I knew it was smiling at me from ear to ear. I felt my insides turning, my soul being squeezed from my body, but I still could not look away. I could hear it beginning to snicker under its tail, disgusting gurgling and troubled breathing. I felt like this was it, but something snapped me out of my trance. I regained my composure, grabbing my phone without staring into the eyes again, and called my parents. I told them there was a man outside my window. I was near tears at this point. They told me they were on the way home, and they were almost there. I hung up, getting up, but I looked into the eyes again by mistake. Instead this time, I felt enraged. Like all I could see was red. I grabbed a gun and I started to make my way outside, but as soon as my hand touched the door handle, I stopped. My rage faded, and I fell to my knees, cuddling up into a corner, waiting for my parents to get home. Luckily, they made it back. I have no idea where that figure went. A few weeks later, we moved to Florida. My dad had received a job offer. I was so relieved. I've never seen that thing again, and I hope I never do. Whatever that was, it was no coyote, and it was far from any man. Story number 3. I live in the countryside of Austin, Texas. I worked as a ranch owner, and my job was to just take care of livestock like cows, longhorn bulls, and horses. Basically a cowboy. I was also an average hunter, so when I was done with my chores and had nothing else to do, I would just go hunting, sometimes with a friend. Whenever it was this particular hunt, I saw something unexpected. One day I was wrapping things up, and I decided to go hunting afterwards. I packed up all my gear and went on my way to my spot. Once I made it there, I unpacked my things and set up camp, but I continued to hike down the trail, searching for a good spot to lay low and wait for a deer to cross my path, or a javelina, since they are the most common here. As I walked, I kept a close eye on the ground for rattlesnakes, something else that was unfortunately common here. As I continued, I found a good spot to hunker down, so I got comfortable, made a few calls and noises hoping to attract something. But after a while, nothing came across my path except for a doe. No bucks yet. I stayed in that spot for a while longer, and when nothing else came by, I decided to move, but then I heard a howl in the distance. Now I know what coyotes sound like, and there are no wolves in this area, as far as I know, so I figured it was a wild dog. After walking a bit, I eventually found another spot to hunker down in, and after a while, I did see a buck come by. I raised my rifle, seconds from pulling the trigger, when suddenly something large came out of the brush and attacked the deer. I saw this thing pin it to the ground, biting right into the buck's neck. The deer struggled, but soon it stopped moving entirely. Then the creature began to eat its meal. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. As I looked on, it became clear to me that this was no ordinary creature. Its head resembled a wolf, but its front limbs were more human-like and very muscular. Its back legs were like that of a dog, with a bushy tail too. I've never been more scared and confused in my life. Somehow, I summoned the courage to get up. I ran right into the brush next to me. I didn't get far when I felt an extremely heavy weight force me to the ground. Sharp claws dug into my skin. That bizarre animal had pinned me. I struggled, fighting back, but it easily overpowered me. I managed to grab my pistol, and desperately I fired. I kept firing until I ran out of ammo. That creature pulled itself away from me, lurching backward. Finally, it turned around and growled as if to tell me, "You got off easy," then ran back into the bushes. I was bleeding from my arm, and I could see 3 claw marks. Immediately, I got up and ran for my truck as fast as I could. When I made it back to it, I called the sheriff's department, telling the operator what had happened. An ambulance was sent to treat my arm and to take me to the hospital. When they arrived, they patched me up real quick, asking me a few questions. I gave them my best description, trying to be honest, even if it did sound crazy. One of them commented, "You're going to have a heck of a scar there, pal, but you'll pull through." I thanked him. I saw a few officers searching the brush, probably to find some trace of the animal that attacked me, but I have a feeling they didn't have any luck. Over the next few days, nothing happened, and my arm did recover. Unfortunately, after that, the hunting spot became off limits. That day still haunts me, and I believe what attacked me may have been a dogman. I wasn't the only one who encountered one either. I am grateful that I didn't see it again, but sometimes at night I swear I can hear it howling out there, and I was always cautious around the woods. Now I'm even more cautious than ever. Be careful if you decide to hunt in the woods of Texas. Story number 4. Let me start off by saying I've never had any mental problems that would cause me to hallucinate or see or hear things that aren't there. I've also been sensitive to energies and things of the unknown and supernatural. Here are just 2 of my encounters that happened a couple of weeks apart. I am a 33-year-old female who was born and raised in Pascagoula, Mississippi. We've had all kinds of strange supernatural incidents here. The Phantom Barber of Pascagoula, the 1975 alien abduction, the haunted Longfellow house, the legend of the Singing River. Do yourself a favor and look that one up. Heck, there was even a little-known murder of a local teacher on her lunch break by a man committing a ritualistic satanic sacrifice. But I digress. At any rate, I still live here. Pascagoula is in Jackson County, the farthest south in the state you can go. When someone thinks of Mississippi, the first thing they think of is backwoods and hicks. But Pascagoula is nothing like that. It's a whole lot of suburbs. In fact, we're home to the largest employer in the state, Huntington Ingalls Shipbuilding. Anything south of Interstate 10 is full-on city. But the first incident took place in Helena. It's about 10 minutes from Pascagoula, and it's sort of in the middle of nowhere. Specifically, where I was, it was 5 minutes north of Interstate 10. I was in a small trailer park accommodating 5 small trailers far back off the road. If you were standing on the street, it looked like the driveway just went on into the woods. When I first moved there with my friend and roommate Stacy, an older male friend, being in the trailer gave me the creeps. It always felt as if someone was watching me. Nothing serious, just a slight unease. Well, after about 8 months living there, my friend and her daughter came to stay with us while they looked for a new place to live. The daughter was mixed, and her mom was white. This is important later. Not long after they moved in, the activity picked up exponentially. Stacy never believed it, but V and V's daughter, who I'll call P, and I would see things. At first I thought I may be imagining things. That was until we all confirmed it, seeing the stuff at the same time. At first, I was seeing older and younger African American men for a nanosecond, then they were gone. Then there was the bathroom sink. I would hear it turn on and off again. I thought I was just hearing things until one time I heard it. I ran into the bathroom, and it was still going. But I was home alone at the time. On another occasion, I heard the bathroom sink turn on again. Confused, I stuck my head out into the hallway calling for P. But as soon as I did, it turned off, and P walked to the hallway from the other side, asking, "Yeah?" She was basically behind me. Trying to make sense of this, I asked, "Were you just in the bathroom?" Her eyes got big, and she said nervously, "No, I thought that was you." Now P is not easily scared. I've never known her to be scared of anything. But at that moment, I could tell she was. A few days later, I had P take me in my car. I was too tired to drive at the time, and it was about 10 p.m. to go to Walmart. My car was parked to the right of Stacy's, and when we went to pull out, we would make 3-point turns. Because of this, the driver windows would be facing the back of his truck. Well, as we were about to put the gear into drive from reverse, I reached to grab my purse from the floorboard of the driver's seat, and I just happened to look up. That's when I saw it. Next to Stacy's tailgate, it looked like a man was sitting. A white man in a black hooded robe, with a skull painted on his face. Let me remind you we're in the middle of nowhere in the woods. I didn't say a word, I just ducked down, now staring at the inside of the driver's door. P began to ask what was wrong, but she must have saw it too. She said, "What do you do, oh my God?" And the window's down. She threw it into drive. We must have slung rocks all the way to the road. Now my theory is that I'm sensitive, but from what I can tell, so is P. I feel as though someone who owned the land in the past may have sacrificed African American men, and possibly children, in some bizarre ritual. And when P moved in, it triggered something. I later told an old neighbor about the story. She turned white and her jaw hit the floor. Stumbling over her words, she told me about how her young children used to ask her if they could, quote unquote, go play with the black kids outside. But there were no African American kids around. About 2 weeks later, I had P take me again at night to the St. Andrews area of Ocean Springs, Mississippi. It's only 2 towns over from Pascagoula. St. Andrews is vastly undeveloped, with trees everywhere. The place I was going was on the road that had trees on one side and maybe one house on the other. Let's just say mostly woods. When we pulled up, she just pulled into the yard. I went inside to talk to my friend and borrow some money from him. When I came back out, the car was now parked parallel to the curb. I could see most of the car still from the porch, aside from the back windshield, as it was obstructed by a tree that was in my line of sight. I could see the front part and the trunk, but I saw a figure standing by the driver's door. I assumed it was P. Once my eyes adjusted, though, I could see it was an old white man. He wore red short-sleeved button-up and navy blue slacks. His gray and white hair was slicked back. He had his hand on my driver's door, like he was trying to get in. Once I realized it wasn't P, I yelled out, "Hey, what are you doing?" He turned to look at me, then started towards the back of the car. But once he walked behind the tree, he just disappeared. Stunned but worried about my friend, I sprinted back to the car. As I made it to the car, she unlocked the door while simultaneously jumping into the passenger seat. P was frantic, no color in her face. I asked what happened. She managed to get out. He was trying to open the door. I asked where he came from. Without missing a beat, she replied with, "The woods, but where did he go?" I told her he disappeared behind the tree. All she could manage was, "Why does this keep happening to us?" It's been a few years now, and P and I don't really talk anymore. I think since we're both sensitive, together we attracted paranormal goings-on. It's probably safer for both of us that we don't really hang out anymore. Thank you for listening to another unsettling episode, and that brings us to the end. Good night. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thank you.